the Germanic Messiah. The first meeting between the Thule organization and Hitler took place when the Thule organization, together with the officers of the Volunteer Corps, drove the communists out of Munich. Hitler was informed about his specific destiny and firmly believed himself to be the reincarnated leader from Atlantis. The aims of this sect were obviously kept silent. Hitler was worshipped as Elijah. His salute, also called Ave, is a greeting of the gods. The swastika was the reversed symbol of Atlantis. If the swastika is turned anti-clockwise, it means the resurrection of souls, the ascension into the Golden Age. Turning the swastika clockwise means the descent of souls into the Dark Ages. Germany Awake was written on every banner, the sentence supposedly an awakening call towards a new Golden Age. The Thule organization wanted to bring about, by force, the resurrection of Atlantis and the 1,000 years empire foretold by Christ. No wonder they used the sign of the descent into the Dark Age. Adolf Hitler was adored as a savior by 50 esoteric groups and brought to power. No one could imagine that he himself was one of the last masters of the Dark Brotherhood of Atlantis, who would lead it to the dark side of occultism. For the first time during the modern era, an esoteric sect came to power, with all its divisions and various branches. The sole objective of this sect, who practiced secret occultism and mass magic, and lived in its own reality, was to take power from another esoteric sect, which has held the world power in its hands until this very day, the Freemasons and the Illuminati.
When the international Jewish financial structure is again successful in plunging the nations in Europe and outside into another world war, then this will not be a victory for the Jews, but the annihilation of the Jewish race in Europe.
Surely it is no coincidence that both the Germanic and the Freemason lodges, which both believed themselves to be chosen by God to lead mankind, were in fact the misleading seducers rather than the chosen ones. And looking behind the scene, one will discover that both forces were in fact the ancient currents of the occult Atlantean War, reincarnating once more as opposing brotherhoods, accusing each other of practicing black magic. The ancient war between Shambhala and Agartha, representing opposing brotherhoods from Atlantis, reached its climax on the outside with the outbreak of the Second World War. And once again, mysterious brotherhoods established all this in Munich through the Thule Society. Von Solotten was initiated by the Turkish Freemasonry, and Karl Haushofer by the Japanese royal court, which he had visited before the First World War. It was their sole intention to enter the political scene, and when the occultists actually got into the leading positions, the Thule Society was dissolved, and a much more secret circle of the Thule was formed. It was this circle which years before the beginning of the war undertook secret expeditions in search of the mysterious high civilizations of Shambhala and Agartha in the center of the earth.
During the UFO Congress put on by Mikhail Hesselman at that time, and Finnish national TV was there, and they asked me to speak about Hitler and the Third Reich and his association with UFOs and the extraterrestrials. So I agreed to do it, after giving them some basic background on my knowledge of ufology. And of a sudden, and I mean this, of a sudden came through my mouth a quotation and a statement that alarmed me, as it did the cameraman and everybody else listening to it. They asked me, as an example, they asked me, was Hitler involved with the ETs in terms of biological research? And what came out of my mouth was simply this: yes, indeed, he was, but not like most people thought he was. He indeed was involved with them, and I went on to tell them that Hitler had made a pact or an agreement with the extraterrestrials. The extraterrestrials first approached him, as they later did the United States, and they said, look, if you let us use your people as biological research entities, or EBs, we will give you the technology to win the war. Hitler says, that's fine, but I will not let you use the Aryan race. But I'll tell you what I will do. I'll let you use all my prisoners, and you can use them unlimitedly to be your biological research entities. Now that also points up, and I think clarifies, many of the enigmas and puzzles that surround, for instance, the disappearance of people from Buchwald and some of the other places that later became history. Those people actually went to the ETs to be used as their biological research entities.
Even the Second World War may have been planned or masterminded by the Freemasons and Illuminati, and the opposition financed by their manipulation of capital. Or were the guardians of the world karma from Shambhala and Agartha, the leaders of both sides, the Illuminati and the Nazis, initiators of the karma of Atlantis? In any case, there was one mystery. After the final battle in Berlin, hundreds of Tibetan corpses were found very close to the Nazi headquarters. And there is another mystery. The flying saucer technology which points to an extraterrestrial high civilization. Should the Spear of Destiny, which is a symbol for the spiritual leadership role for mankind, be given to the German nation? Why did secret fleets of submarines retreat towards the South Pole and Argentina? They also carried Adolf Hitler, Eva Braun, and other secret members of the Thule Circle.
And with the cessation of hostilities, of course, in Europe, Germany has capitulated, and of course there was an immediate interest and concern to get there as quickly as possible to capture the personnel, the documents, and also the instruments called the spacecraft which Hitler had created. Now that was of primary interest to the Soviets, the Americans, and of course the English. As it turns out, the Soviets were the first to reach Berlin, and they did get most of the documents supportive, of course, of that particular project. Secondly, the Americans arrived, and they got the second amount of documents, but they did get the most of the brains, including von Braun. And Dr. Hertak will pick that up later, of course, and expand upon that. Now, we also discovered when we got to Berlin that the two craft which we were most interested in, the spacecraft which Hitler had, of course, built, were no longer there. Indeed, they had been disassembled by the SS, and they had been spirited out of the country aboard two submarines, and they spent 6 months at sea and finally ended up in what is now, or always has been, Argentina. From there, they were taken into Antarctica, and that's another story, so I won't go into it. Another interesting thing, too, which I'd like to bring out here, when I had my lecture in Frankfurt 2 or 3 years ago, I flew directly from Frankfurt back to Chicago, Illinois for another major appearance, and in my audience was a woman who was very excited about what I was talking about, because I was talking about this very subject. But I was also talking about Hitler, and I also said that I didn't think he died in the bunker. She couldn't wait to talk to me, and later on we had a private interview, and she told me that she was the daughter of the former secret head of Argentina. And I won't mention her name on TV, but nevertheless, I know that it was all substantiated. She said that when she was a little girl, about 10 or 12 years old, she and her father, who was the head of the Secret Service of Argentina, were dining in an outdoor cafe. And he said, you see that man sitting over there? And she said, yes. And he said, well, that's Hitler. You see the woman sitting next to him? That's Eva Braun, his wife. Hitler did not die in the bunker. So we have to assume then, as the spacecraft were being taken to Argentina, Hitler also went along with that and later set up his life in Argentina. Now, he died somewhere in the 80s after 1987 and fulfilled a prophecy as the great Lord of Darkness, of course, in accordance with the Mayan calendar.
All witnesses were eliminated by Sebottendorf, of whom not even a photograph exists. Allegedly, he was assassinated in Turkey. Haushofer and his family allegedly committed suicide.